Coming up on West Dakota, Fox News at 9. 5 workers are missing after a massive oil rig explosion in Oklahoma. Plus, North Dakota prepares for the State of the State address. But first, after a 3-day shutdown, Republicans and Democrats strike a deal to reopen the government.
This is West Dakota Fox News at 9 with Molly Martinez and meteorologist Henry Blakes. Your first news of the night starts right now on West Dakota Fox News at 9.
Good evening, I'm Molly Martinez. The federal government is almost back to business. After a weekend of shutdown, Congress struck a deal to keep the government open another 3 weeks. Fox News correspondent Lauren Blanchard has the feisty words from some fed-up congressmen.
Mr. Schumer, aye.
With that vote, the Senate took the first crucial step to reopening the federal government, followed later by the House, thanks to a deal struck by Democratic and Republican leaders.
Chuck and Mitch had to come together for the good of the country and said, we hear you loud and clear. You're going to get a chance.
To get to this vote, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell promised Democrats that he'd allow a vote on DACA to help the 800,000 immigrants who were brought here illegally as children before protections run out for Dreamers March 5th. But the White House has laid out 3 more issues needed for the president's support of DACA.
Into chain migration, into the visa lottery system, and funding for border security that would certainly include the wall.
The measure reopens the government until February 8th, a new deadline but with an old budget.
Continuing resolutions state that we're going to operate on last year's budget. It doesn't reflect this year's priorities.
Congress voted as many government workers were forced to stay home, leaving the nation's capital less crowded than usual, while agitation among the American public grew.
I think ardent Republicans probably think the Republicans are winning, and ardent Democrats think the Democrats are winning, and everybody else in America is kind of wondering how some folks up here made it through the birth canal.
As Lauren just mentioned, most of the issues that caused this 3-day stalemate are still unresolved, namely DACA. Congressman Kevin Cramer says that shouldn't be grounds for a shutdown.
To vote against something because what you want's not in it means that you're willing to vote against anything.
Today's compromise was facilitated in part by Senator Heidi Heitkamp and the Common Sense Caucus. The agreement will fund government operations until February 8th. Instead of just delaying the problem, Senator Heidi Heitkamp says there needs to be a focus on people over party.
One of the things that we've got to get beyond is the rhetoric and the winning and losing in a partisan way, because when government shuts down, the people of this country lose.
Time now to take our first check on weather with meteorologist Henry Blakes. Governor Doug Burgum is set to deliver the State of the State address tomorrow morning. The speech is usually given at the Capitol, but this year the governor is taking it to Minot State University. Molly Hurley spoke with the university president about what you need to know if you plan on attending. While a full transcript of the speech has not been released, based off the governor's first year in office, we can expect a few talking points. That includes his push for technology innovation. Since taking office, Burgum has strived to integrate new technologies into the state. We can also expect talk of a Main Street initiative. Burgum has made local commerce a priority and pushed to bring a skilled workforce to the state. Also, Vision Zero. That's the statewide effort to reduce the amount of traffic and pedestrian deaths. Finally, we can definitely expect to hear about the state's opioid crisis. Like I said before, the State of the State is usually delivered in front of the legislature at the Capitol, but this year is different. According to Governor Burgum, he wants to communicate his vision for North Dakota across the state. And he chose Minot because of its downtown revitalization project. Meantime, back in Bismarck, Democrats will give their response at the Capitol building.
Nations who live with.
This is a year where our caucus is changing how we present our response. Instead of having a press conference style given by leadership, instead we wanted to invite and engage with some of our other caucus members.
The Democratic response will be given by Representative Ron Guggisberg 30 minutes following the governor's address. You can watch that on our sister station, KFYR TV. In legal news, Red Fawn Fallis has changed her plea. Fallis admitted to civil disorder and possession of a firearm and ammunition by a felon. She was scheduled to go on trial next week. She faces a maximum penalty of 15 years when she is sentenced in the spring. Until then, she will be at a halfway house in Fargo. Also in Fargo, police say the underage drinker who rammed into a cop car had a blood alcohol content 3 times the legal limit. They say that the 20-year-old driver damaged the vehicle Friday night, but no one was hurt. The woman faces charges of driving under the influence and underage drinking. Today, the Supreme Court denied the appeal of a former U.S. Deputy Marshal. Michael Riviera was convicted of recording video of women changing in store fitting rooms. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. A man accused of punching a Bismarck police officer in the head and gouging his eyes last October has pleaded not guilty. Donald Miller appeared before a preliminary hearing this morning. The police officer shot and wounded Miller and was put on administrative leave.
It's alleged that you caused bodily injury to a Bismarck police officer at the time the officer was acting in his official capacity.
The officer is now back on duty. Miller's trial will begin on May 1st. In health news, the North Dakota Safety Council says there were 116 cardiac arrests in Bismarck and Mandan outside of a hospital last year. That prompted the idea to make everyone a potential first responder. Along with the metro area ambulance service, they want to turn the area into a cardiac-ready community.
If we can get more people to learn hands-only CPR, more of the community to know where AEDs are located, the higher likelihood that victims of cardiac arrest are going to get to walk out of a hospital.
The Safety Council says your chances of surviving a cardiac event decrease 10% every minute you go without treatment. Also in health news, hearing aids are going high tech. We'll have more on that tomorrow. Sometimes skipping work means your coworkers have to pick up the slack. And for teachers, that means doing double duty. Cynthia McLaughlin shows us a unique problem in the Bismarck school system with a lack of teachers showing up to work with no substitutes.
Okay, so who won that round?
Substitute teachers can teach a variety of subjects to a classroom of strangers of all different ages.
Going into a kindergarten room, trying to get them in order to get things done is like opening a box of ping pong balls because they're all over the place.
But we are asking those subs to be a teacher when they're in that room and to really carry out the same type of lessons plans as that regular teacher would.
If they're quiet in the hallways, they usually come up with...
Glenn Birch has been a teacher for 45 years and a substitute teacher for 14.
And that's how we keep going through the whole day.
This is his motivational game to get the students on their best behavior while their teacher is out. He also says relating to the students leads to great substitute success.
They want to get to know you on a personal basis. So what's worked for me as a guest teacher is they have an interest in what is it that I like to do in my spare time. Have I met anybody famous?
No. Good job.
That's something they really like to do, is to interact with each other and their instructors. And that's one of the reasons why I go back, because I too like to interact with them.
Birch only planned on subbing for 3 to 5 years before retiring, but the kids keep him coming back. For West Dakota Fox News at 9, I'm Cynthia McLaughlin.
A few hours ago, a new combined task force met in Bismarck to figure out how to pay for roads without raising taxes. The Infrastructure Task Force and Special Assessment Task Force says that without raising taxes, there aren't many options.
The legislature, with what they passed this last session, those are the only tools that we're allowed to use. And so it would be nice to pull back some local control maybe and have our state legislators trust our city leaders to make some decisions that's best for our community.
Tonight they moved to work with the League of Cities to remove the legislative restrictions restricting them. Coming up, the frantic search for missing workers after a massive gas explosion in Oklahoma. Welcome back. 5 oil rig workers are missing tonight after a massive explosion in Oklahoma. Emergency officials say more than 20 workers were at the scene during the incident. 17 were immediately taken off site, but 5 other employees are still unaccounted for. It's unclear if there are any injuries or fatalities at this time. Crews worked all day to get this massive fire under control. Meantime, fire crews in Texas are working to contain a string of grass fires. The first blaze, known as the Flower Mound Fire, sparked this morning near Denton. That burned through about 200 acres before it was completely mopped out. Another large fire near Willow Park burned about 1,000 acres, forcing evacuations. Authorities are investigating a helicopter crash at St. Louis downtown airport. The crash happened this morning near one of the hangars. Reportedly, 2 people were on board at the time of the incident, believed to be a student and the flight instructor. Both have minor injuries. Over in the Philippines, an active volcano continues to spout lava, forcing thousands of villagers to flee. Residents were warned a violent eruption could be imminent. This is Mount Mayon. The volcano has been active for a week now. And some wild weather on the opposite side of the spectrum. Kansas is being blasted with a blizzard today. The town of Colby experiencing dangerously high winds. Snowdrifts are accumulating feet of powder, and emergency crews are urging everyone to stay indoors and off the roads. A similar story in Minnesota today. This is downtown Owatonna. What started as a few flurries has turned into a heavy snowfall blanketing the region. Many residents are forced to dig out their cars just after a couple hours of exposure. Time now to take a check on our own weather with meteorologist Henry Blakes. Welcome back. The second ever ND Country Fest will be held over 3 days and 3 nights in New Salem, July 12th through the 14th. The festival hired Corey Bliss and Brad Rivers. It's expected to attract 8,000 to 10,000 people a day. For more information on the event, you can go to the link on our website, yournewsleader.com. Well, a service dog got to meet his celebrity doppelganger at the happiest place on earth. Atlas, whose favorite toy at home is stuffed Pluto, got the chance to meet the real thing at Disney World. The golden retriever was visiting Epcot with his owner when he came nose to nose with Pluto himself. In the viral video, you can see Atlas wildly wagging his tail and sniffing noses with Pluto. Henry, do you have a celebrity doppelganger?
Probably somewhere out there. I think we all probably do, wouldn't you say?
If I don't wear makeup, I look exactly like John Mayer.
Interesting. I believe it. Hey, we're going to talk about the weather right quick. Hey, we've got the fog that's going to continue across the central part of the region for tonight. Otherwise, the rest of the region, you're going to be on the okay side, a bit on the cloudy side, but still unseasonably mild for tomorrow. Starting out your morning, we will be at least near 20 degrees. Not that much wind, so wind isn't going to be a problem for tomorrow. West wind mostly between 5 and 10 miles per hour, 10 to 15 across the southwest for Dickinson and surrounding areas. Highs right near freezing, but still, that's not too bad. We're still warmer than we should be for this time of year, but the mild weather will return at least by Wednesday. Several more days of a January thaw, back to normal in time for the weekend. A little breezy at times, be mindful of that, but still no mentions of any major storms.
That looks good. All right, thanks. We'll see you tomorrow.